Hello, narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, toxic relationships. Most of the content I see covers just half, is that not half of the story? And what I want to do is address the other half as well, because unless you get that other half, you can't change. So if you know somebody that's perhaps in a narcissistic relationship, a toxic relationship, one that you just sense something's not right, then this will be useful to them. Perhaps you know somebody who's been abused in their past, but kind of is in a good relationship, a good place now. That's cool. But if they've been in an abusive relationship in the past, then that's a clue, an indicator that things might not be right now and that things need to be addressed, but they're hidden, they're under the surface. I'll tell you more. And why it gets worse, even though you can't see it and you're a bit blind to it. So this can be really useful for them. And at the end, I want to tell you about a free course I'm doing to address this as well. And I'm doing this because I care, and if I can help just one person avoid some of the scars that I've collected along the way from my 3 divorces, I have 4 beautiful children as well, and 1 bankruptcy, then I'm a happy man. So here's quite a common story that I find with the clients I work with. I'm fine, I'm fine. That's a classic title for most of the clients I work with at the start. So this lady I work with, she had some experience of past abuse, which, she brought to the surface quite quickly. And it was like, oh, really, really nasty. Not that abuse is ever nice, but really nasty, very physically abusive, sexually abusive, obviously emotionally abusive. That precedes the other 2. Doesn't always lead to it, but precedes it, which means it's always present. It was really quite extreme, the physical and the sexual abuse, and constant emotional abuse. But the issue she brought to me was of anxiety and panic attacks, quite severe anxiety and self-loathing. She used to cover mirrors so she didn't have to look at herself, which is just awful. So that indicates quite a lot going on, quite a lot of negativity going on. But the issue she brought to me was anxiety. And she managed to get control of her anxiety relatively quickly within a few months so that she didn't have panic attacks anymore. It was still there, but she could manage it. She had the strategies to deal with that and keep it at a low level. Also, the other thing that she'd wanted to get hold of once she'd got hold of her anxiety was her weight. She'd done Slimming World 3 times, and each time, although she got something, she bounced back and got heavier. So she said she wanted to lose 5 stone, and she did, because she was in control of herself, because she had boosted her self-esteem by getting control and controlling the negative emotions more. She was able to stay consistent for herself and it was through Slimming World again, where she lost this 5 stone and kept it off. But the funny thing is, people loved that bit, oh my God, how did you lose this weight? What did you do? What have you been doing? And when she responded, oh, it's I've been on this course, this self-esteem, it's coaching, it's really good. And she'd said they'd kind of glaze over and say, oh, okay, so but how did you lose the weight? What did you do? What have you been doing? They just want the end result, and they couldn't hear this stuff about what was really making the difference for her. But they wanted the outcome. However, as her life was improving, I could still see this darkness inside her, and I had to wait until the right time where she was ready to receive the question from me directly. And I asked the question about her current relationship, and everything came out. While it wasn't physical or sexual in terms of abuse, it was emotional. And she described it as worse than the previous relationship. Her life was just full of torment. She described it as worse than before. So even though she was overcoming so much and understanding so much about abuse and abusive relationships, she figured that was all in her past. Not in her present, but it was omnipresent. It was very present in her life. And then that's what she needed to address. Happily, she's left that relationship, although she still has to fend him off sometimes in terms of abuse and tactics he'll try, because they have 2 children together. So, she has that continuum still, but she stands in her power. She puts boundaries in place. She doesn't take no shit. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So she's in control, she's managing herself, and she's living the normal life with the normal struggles without all that horrid torment that she had to deal with before. So that's who I help and how I help them. So who do you know who would say, oh yeah, I'm fine, because we're all fine too until we go beneath the surface and actually explore this stuff. So who do you know who's been or experienced past abuse? Who do you know who would say perhaps they're in a relationship now and everything on the surface looks wonderful? Because with the previous client that I've just spoken about, nobody would have known that was going on. Nobody had any idea within the family, the friend group. You would have no clue because she would keep stum. She wouldn't say anything because she thought it was her. Okay, so they don't say anything. You can't see anything. It's really difficult. And people say, I'm fine. So who do you know that applies to? And even if you address stuff and get little hints of things not being right, no, really, I'm fine. And the reason is that we're conditioned to that. And I want to go into that, and I do go into that on that free course in much more detail than I will do now. But it also means that people aren't looking for me. They're not looking for a coach who understands the dynamics of this, knows the two parts of the story, and would really be able to help them. They're not looking for it. So it's an interesting marketing dilemma for me. So why can't we see this? Why can't we see that we're in a toxic relationship now? Why are we blind to it? Whereas, perhaps we've had difficulties in the past, but we don't connect the two because they're very different. You can be with different people, experiencing different types of abuse. It's not sexual, it's not physical. Although he did put his fist in my, and it's not gender specific, but it's more widely reported that it's the male abuser, be it emotional, physical, or sexual. So why are we so blind to it? Because we adjust as it gets worse. We normalize that because we go, it was my fault, I did the wrong thing, and we're told that as well, and we believe it because we believe we're at fault, and the other person, we put them on a pedestal. So we start to normalize as things get worse. Oh, that's normal, and to adjust to that standard now. And it's like, oh no, we've got a new standard, and you adjust to that, and it's like the boiling the frog, although that's not exactly right. There's a level where you don't notice the changes because we normalize and adjust all the way along, and actually things are getting worse. But you would never see it. You would never recognize that. Does that make sense? So the output of that, when it's your fault, you're being told it's your fault, you believe it's your fault, is that you go, I must try harder. I will try harder. I need to do more. And that's the normalization that goes on. You agree to it. Every part of your soul, your body, your mind agrees to doing this. It's such a difficult thing to recognize. And ultimately, it digs you deeper in the wrong hole. It's an awful thing. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. So we need to understand both sides, both halves of the story, not just understand about what narcissism is, what a narcissist is, what emotional abuse is. We also need to understand the other side. And that other side is that it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to change that stuff. And I go through everything about what I mean there in terms of it's not your fault, because it's not your fault. It's your conditioning, your belief system, and there's tons in there to understand that I won't go through now, but it's all in the free course. The same about responsibility. That is your responsibility. Nobody else can change you but you. And you can, but you can't see it. So it's a really difficult thing. So who do you know who has a past of being abused, but they're fine now? They're in a really nice relationship, looks really good on the outside. Can you relate to that? Who is also highly agreeable. You might have seen other videos where I post this. It's part of a personality profile. Agreeableness is one of the big 5. And what that means is that we're really nice, really kind, really concerned about harmony. So hate confrontation, very agreeable, too agreeable, put others first over ourselves and other people's needs before our own. Does that make sense? So who do you know who's really agreeable, that really kind person? Because there are definitely pitfalls when you're high on that level. Maybe this checklist would help. So can they confront issues? Because one of the things about being highly agreeable is that you just, it feels so awful to confront something. You'd rather put it off. You'll do it later. Can they confront an issue? Because if they can't, then that's an indicator. Can they express themselves? Not just emotionally, but logically as well. Because often when we're highly agreeable, we're so consumed and value so much the emotional side that we can't express the actual logical side. So we just stay on the emotional side, and we can appear emotional, too emotional. And then that's a catch-22 situation. We get told we're too emotional. We can get put down for that. But also, can they control their emotions? Can they choose when to put their emotions to the side, or are they just all consumed by the emotions? And I don't mean that negatively, but when you're guided solely by your emotions, you perhaps miss out on other aspects that if you put your emotions to the side, you could work and express yourself far more strongly when you needed to. Does that make sense? And that's all about creating boundaries, creating strong boundaries. Are they able to say no when they need to, or do they just say yes to everybody and get burdened by trying to be so nice and being genuinely kind, but it counts against them, especially if they've attracted somebody that takes advantage of them, somebody that's narcissistic, somebody that's abusive. So are they able to put themselves first, which again is a really difficult thing if you're high in this level, agreeableness. So they need to understand both of these sides, what's happened, but also kind of who they are to attract this stuff, why they attracted it, why they tolerated it. They need to understand what happened, but why it happened. And that's wholly within them and also within their control. So that's a lovely thing. And if they identify all this stuff, then it's obviously the changing that stuff. And again, because it's all in your control, you can change, which is a lovely thing. So I'm doing the free course to help raise awareness of this stuff because it's a massive hidden issue. A free course to raise awareness, not to fix. Okay, I can't fix everything, but in time I can do that. And where I get paid with the one-to-one client work is the fixing, the changing. But really, people need to be aware of that. And sometimes just knowledge can change them depending on the kind of level of where we are, both self-awareness and past. Sometimes just awareness can change everything. It's a wonderful thing. There's no risk. It's free. There's no risk to that person who is experiencing this stuff. There's no risk to you if you get the course. If it's not for you, I hope it's not for you. I hope you've not experienced this stuff. I hope you haven't got somebody in your past where you were controlled and abused. I hope that's not you. But if you know somebody, then please share this with them because it could be a lifeline for them. And I say that really humbly, because when I was exploring this stuff 16 plus years ago, and it's taken me that long to get my head around this, when I was exploring this stuff, and yeah, the internet wasn't quite as established as it is now, there wasn't much stuff out there. And what there was about wife beaters. And that didn't suit me. So I had to read between the lines and I kind of understand what was going on for women to understand what was going on for me in my situation. So this could be a lifeline to somebody. And again, I care about this, I really do care about this subject. So if I can help anybody, just someone avoid getting some of the scars that I've collected over that time, then I'm a happy man. So depending on when you're watching this, the free course isn't done yet. So there'll be a link around here somewhere where you can sign up to get notification of when the course is done. Depending on when you're watching this, it might be done already, in which case the link should reflect that and take you straight to it. So if you know anybody that you think would benefit from this, they can use the link to sign up to get notifications when it's free, or just ask, just ask, message me, ask for the link. All right. Many thanks. I hope that's of interest. Have an awesome rest of the day. All right. Bye-bye.